Cowboys have been good but never great. The Cowboys feel internally like now it's their turn. And in an NFC where there's been some power brokers that have faded, feels like a wide open landscape. Not the same in the AFC where there is a ton of very, very good teams and a handful of elite teams. In the NFC, it feels like it's the Niners, the Eagles, then a lot of space for somebody. And some of you may feel like the Eagles were a one-year wonder last year, that Jalen Hurts can't do that again. I feel otherwise. I think the Eagles are still going to be really good, but the Cowboys have reason to believe that they can be part of the contenders of the NFC. So it brings us to Dak Prescott. And I believe that Plaxico is half right here. He's half right in this. The Cowboys, as presently constituted, cannot win a championship with Dak Prescott. But it's only because of how they're built. I don't believe, no matter what Mike McCarthy says, that that's a team with Tony Pollard as your centerpiece at the running back position who can maul their way to a Super Bowl. I don't think they have the defense to do it, nor the offensive line to do it, nor the depth at running back to do it. When the Niners did this a couple of years ago in 2019, they basically sledgehammered their way to a championship, to an NFC championship, rather. They have one of the best, if not the best, defense in football. They have depth at running back. They have one of the best play callers in football. And one of the best tight ends in football as well. And so they could really pound you, and Jimmy Garoppolo did not have to do a lot to get them there. Kind of ride the saddle of physicality, and really creative play calling. A little bit less so last year when the Niners got back to the NFC Championship game because Brock Purdy provided a little bit more mobility than Jimmy Garoppolo, and Christian McCaffrey was such a dynamic running back. They didn't only use him between the tackles, they used him out in space as a wide receiver, as a slot receiver, yada, yada, yada. So that was a little different than we've seen in recent years from the Niners. But for Dak Prescott, there does have to be some of the same reality. Since his leg injury, Dak's effectiveness in terms of big dynamic plays and downfield has waned. And I don't think that's coming back. I think he's good enough to make you a contender if you had a sledgehammer type team. But aside from Micah Parsons, Diggs, and maybe a few other guys, that's not the equivalent of the San Francisco 49ers defense. That is not. And no matter what Mike McCarthy might believe about himself, he is not the play calling equivalent of Kyle Shanahan. And as good as Tony Pollard is, he is not the only the guy that you can, I think, build an entire offense around with that offensive line. I do not think that offensive line is where it needs to be like it once was to say, we will just follow you road graders, you big ham hocks, as we like to say, the hog mollies. They're just not that great at those positions. So could Dak get there? If you put Dak on this year's Niners team, they'd be a contender. They'd be a Super Bowl contender. But Dak on this Cowboys team? No, I don't believe as such. No, I do not believe as such. So I would agree with Plaxico that this Dak on this Cowboys team cannot win a Super Bowl. Mraz, what do you think about Plaxico's take?
I can't say that he can't. I can't say that Dak Prescott can't on this team. But Dak Prescott now is finally, for 2 straight years, gotten away from having the most elite offensive line, the absolute most elite run game. Mike McCarthy may not be a good coach, and you've seen Dak Prescott be a bit exposed. I think Dak Prescott benefited by being the Dallas Cowboys quarterback and putting him in a bit of that starlight. I think he's a quarterback that's in the 10 to 15 range, that if everything breaks right, he could win you a couple games, but he could certainly throw you out of them. So I can't say he can't, but he is certainly not going to be the ultimate reason why you would pick the Cowboys to win a Super Bowl.
Certainly if he has to throw 30 times a game,
yeah,
the Cowboys are going to be toast. They're going to be exposed, as you said. Now, it sounds like McCarthy doesn't want to do that. Sounds like McCarthy wants to run the football. That was a problem with Kellen Moore. He basically took the swipe at Kellen Moore. You wanted to score points. I want to win games. We'll see if Mike McCarthy can win games. I don't have great faith that somehow Mike McCarthy is some type of offensive genius and suddenly figures out all of the problems that the Cowboys can solve in one off season.
No, and they basically need Micah Parsons to wreck a ton of games on defense. Brandon Cooks is going to be the end-all be-all as a number 2 receiver. They let Dalton Schultz go, right? I just don't look at the Cowboys roster and go, that's a team I'm backing for the Super Bowl. But they're the Cowboys, and they have the star in their helmet, Dak Prescott, and people will fall in love with them anyway in the next month.
It feels like they're a 9-8 team to me. It feels like they're slightly above 500. And I would probably say that if it was the 16-game schedule, they were a 9-7 team. But, it does not feel like they're an elite team in the NFC.
And I would at least say this. If they were in the AFC, I don't even think we're having a conversation with them as a playoff team.
That's not even a conversation that they're a contender. It's
right.
In the AFC, they are not even in the conversation of Bengals, Chiefs, Bills, and the top-tier teams.
Ravens, anybody else.
Ravens, Chargers, etc. Bogues, what do you think about Plaxico's call here?
We've had this Dak breakdown, Cowboy breakdown a lot. As you said, like multiple people throwing some stuff out. I still think Dak's a fine quarterback, but I'm with Sean on just this is not a good enough team for most quarterbacks to take any further north to get near a Super Bowl.
Could Joe Burrow take this Cowboys team to a Super Bowl?
He could get them closer by maybe 2 rounds than Dak could, yes.
Okay.
He could because Burrow took a Bengal team that I think wasn't as good at that real time to a Super Bowl. Now they've gotten better.
Oh, I don't know.
The offensive line was atrocious.
That's true. But Jamar Chase is better than anything the Cowboys have at wide receiver.
Okay. Yeah.
And the Bengals defense was pretty good 2 years ago. They were underrated because they didn't have a lot of names, but they didn't have a Micah Parsons. But top to bottom, that Bengals defense was probably better than this Cowboys defense. Now, Burrow is way better than Dak. I'm not saying he's not. I think Joe Burrow... I don't know. I think Joe
Pollard
Burrow probably
and Mixon are very similar.
Joe Burrow can get this Cowboys team to an NFC Championship game, I think.
Burrow's but you're talking about one of the elite, unbelievable 3 talents at quarterback in the league.
Correct. Yes.
But I think that's also the other point of Dak. Like, Dak's not that.
That's right.
And he's probably not going to be that.
That's right. Patty B?
Yeah, I think Plaxico's spot on. Because anytime you thought in the past that Dak was going to lead the Cowboys anywhere, he shows you that he can't. And he usually throws a big interception in the big games. I think Dak's career is basically can be summarized. There's games where he looks like a top 5 quarterback, and there's games where he looks like, Cooper Rush. We had a conversation. Should Cooper Rush be the Cowboys starter? Because that's how little faith I think a lot of most realistic Cowboys, and there's not many realistic Cowboys fans, but any realistic Cowboy fan was saying, holy crap, is Cooper Rush better than Dak Prescott? And what better way to sum up what I think of Dak Prescott than the end of the year, the playoffs? It looks unbelievable against the Buccaneers, making every throw right on a dime, dunking in there, 300 yards. And then he looks like he shouldn't even be on the field against the 49ers.
Yeah.
He went through, what was it, a 7-game span where he had 9 picks last year?
He stinks.
You could chalk up 1 or 2 of those deflections, but come on. His decision-making at this point in his career, atrocious.
You can't rely on him to be the catalyst that gets you anywhere. He's got to be a passenger.